The river has come up about 10 feet overnight, and it's trebled its width, and it's washed right over the banks on both sides, and it's halfway up the retaining wall. And if we look upstream, it's brown and murky and rushing very close to the bottom of the bridge. Let's go for a walk and see how high it is further down. All the beaches, the pebble beaches where we usually look for fossils and skim stones across, they're all completely submerged, and it's rushing so fast, and this red-brown torrent of dirty water. It looks more like the Zambezi than the Wye. Not that I've ever been to the Zambezi, but Spate, a river in Spate, is definitely the right description.
That would be quite good for surfing. Look at those waves.
They look a bit frothy, don't they?
Yeah.
Don't know where you'd end up if you surfed down there. When it's like this, you can hardly believe it's the same stretch of water that's so shallow and clear and babbling, particularly, around about May time, when you first think, oh, I might dunk my toes in it. Or you start sailing little boats with leaves for sails made down it. But all those stretches in Thomas Hardy books where the river rises and there's a raging flood and somebody's about to get swept away, and you think, that's a bit much. Doesn't seem a bit much when you're standing there now.
All the stuff that usually covers the root systems of the trees hanging over the river has been washed away. So you can see how few roots it's hanging on by.
Yes, it's a really big oak, and it is hanging onto the bank by really no more than 3 roots. And more of the soil is being washed and washed away every time the river's in spate. And I wouldn't be surprised if before too many winters are out, that oak tree, huge as it is, probably hundreds, 250 years old, is one of the casualties that's swept away. Hang on in there, Grandpa. You can do it. We just noticed the proof of how high it's been. Halfway up the tree, there's a sort of a big tub, the kind of things the farmers use to put chemicals in, or sheep dip or whatever. It's lodged in a tree in the middle of the river. So it must have been washed there by the water.
Daddy, can we go canoeing?
Today?
Yeah.
It's one of those fantastic winter's days when there's been such a hard frost, a hoar frost, that every fence post and every gate has a topping of ice. Every tree's transformed into a Christmas decoration, and every blade of grass is like a little icicle, a little silver spear sticking up. The river's crystal clear and greenish round the edges. That sort of appley icy green you see only when it's been this cold. And the midwinter sun, so low in the sky, giving that hazy sunshine and making everything look absolutely beautiful. It's slightly eerie, slightly otherworldly. A touch of mist coming off the river. Very quiet. Cold always seems to intensify the quiet. It's been an absolutely rotten year weather-wise. It's been cloudy and rainy. But today, with the cold, has come blue sky and beautiful, hazy winter sunshine. You come inside to the warm and talk about the river with all-round good local boy Brian Lawrence.
1963 was a hard winter, and I can always remember myself Michael Pugh, the postman, and Elwyn Morgan, who lived up the road here, we decided we'd walk up the river, and we walked all the way from the river down the park, all the way up to Martig on the river.
On the ice?
On the ice. The ice was that thick. We walked all the way up, and then we walked, there's a hill just behind Nanath Canol, we call Lofty Glycian, up over the top of that, and we came out in the open. Where the hell's the road? You know, the mountain road was covered in about 6 foot of snow, and we were lost. And we could see this triangle sticking through the snow. And in the old days, the danger, you know, the county council put a danger sign up, and we could just see that sticking up above the snow line. Yeah. And of course, we could see there it was the road going down to Glanflyn. But it was quite a scary experience. That year, stupid, we decided we'd walk out onto the first dam on the ice. And of course, the ice was about 10 foot. You know, the water was going down, and the ice was, you know, suspended about 10 foot above. And as we were walking, we could hear these, like, pistol shots. And it was the ice cracking. And we got to the middle of it. And all of a sudden, we thought, this is bloody stupid, isn't it? So we retraced our steps. What difference would it make if we had carried on to the other side? Yeah. But, you know, you think... I mean, sometimes I still have a cold sweat when I think of that, like, you know, going into the middle of the Cabin Dam in 1963, just because, the ice, in all fairness, well, it must have been about that thick, like, but even so, it was a damn stupid thing to do.
So had it frozen since then, the river or the reservoir?
Not thick enough. It wouldn't have froze really hard enough.
May never happen again then.
May never happen again.
Climate change, you know.
You can hear the bells of St. Clement's in the background because it's Sunday morning. Morgan's playing with his friend Ben, that's Ben the boy, not to be confused with Ben the dog, and we're playing with the ice. Ah! I've been stabbed with an icicle. Ow! 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 Morgan, are you eating ice?
Yeah.
Does it taste nice?
Yeah.
Is it very, very cold?
Yeah.
Is that ice off the river?
No.
Where did you get to them?
Yeah.
Oh, of the murky, muddy puddle behind us?
Yeah.
Do you think it's very hygienic and good for you?
No.
Do you reckon you can walk out to the middle of that puddle over there?
Oh, don't run across it! Not anymore.
I can't get further than here.
We're on our way home.
Journeying out across the ice. That's me falling through it.
It's like glass, this, isn't it?
Kind of glass I would have liked in the bathroom.
What, frosted glass?
Yeah, proper frosted glass.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? That's trying to get the dog to do his Bambi impression on the ice. Come on, Ben! The dog is the only sensible one who's not walking on the ice.
It's not actually wet.
Oh, the dog's on the ice. It's an old sled husky dog.
I'm soaked.
Let's go home before you catch your death. You can always come down a bit later.
A nice roaring fire. You often feel when you live on this reach of the river that the past is backed up hard against the present, and that superstitions have lingered on here. Right into the 1920s, it's said that the women of this stretch of the River Wye used to put a cross in a circle on the dough before they baked their bread in the ovens. The cross was to keep the witches away. And now we're safe and warm in front of the fire. We can talk about the man who certainly knew all about the devil, and he only lived over the river in Cumdaither. The seventh son of a seventh son, Francis Morgan, the famed Radnorshire conjurer, who could do all sorts of tricks, most of them nasty. One time, when a neighbour complained that another neighbour had hexed her, making her hens go off the lay, she went to Francis Morgan and paid him 14 shillings to do his worst. It said that night, as the woman in question lay in her bed, she felt a terrible shudder and knew that the devil was close. A storm whipped up, and a horse, which was normally an old quiet thing, went mad in its stable, and she had to go down and let him out. And as she did so, there was a big flash of lightning, and a tree was uprooted from the bank of the river and thrown towards her. It said, from that day forward, she knew nothing but pain and cramps, and never had a peaceful night's rest. Not, that is, until the famous John Wesley brought her back to God. Francis Morgan. I think it's fair to say there's still neighbours having quarrels just like that today. No local conjurer, though. It's been colder here for longer than I can remember it, and remarkable things happened. In the last few days, the river has frozen. You can probably hear that it's still running a bit, but there are large sheets of ice stretching right out from the bank and right out almost into midstream from both sides, especially where there's rocks or shallows. And it's the most incredible sight. There's just a small rivulet of water running down the middle, and actually below the old iron bridge, just a little bit further downstream from where I am now, there's a bit where there's a little bit of a mini oxbow lake, and it's frozen right over completely. Certainly every day for the past couple of days the sheets of ice have been advancing, and today, I don't know whether it means it's thawing or it's just so much that it's breaking off, but there are small ice floes being swept down the middle of the river. It's just absolutely beautiful, because the ice has been getting thicker and thicker over everything, and yesterday we had a very, very fine dusting of snow, and that's frozen. It looked like something out of Narnia. I'm expecting the Ice Queen to arrive and take me off to her palace at any moment. For the first time, I can imagine what Brian was talking about when he said the river froze over and he walked all the way up to the Marteg 2 miles upstream. And then the ice itself is amazing. It's in different layers, and the layers are different colours. There's this sort of granulated ice, which is all wibbly wobbly and sticking up, and then it's clear ice spreading out from that, and there's green ice, and there's white ice, which has presumably got bits of snow trapped in it. And the funny thing is, it'll only take a couple of degrees rise in temperature, and it'll all be gone overnight. Just goes to show, every day when you live here, it's never the same. Never the same, always different, always beautiful, always perfect.
Chris Tully-Evans at the far side in his cottage in Powys. My Mile of the River was produced in Wales by Steve Groves.